Hi everyone and welcome back to a new series of videos in which I answer your submitted questions about my experience of being a woman who is child-free by choice. That is, a woman who doesn't want kids, who doesn't have kids, and never wants to have kids. I asked you guys over on my community tab to submit questions about this, kind of about my experience, about why I have these feelings and why I've made these decisions for my life, and I am going to be answering them today. I got way more questions submitted than I expected, but thank you all for that. I do appreciate it. Basically, I'm making this video not because I feel like I need to defend my own personal choice, but because I think we just need to talk about the topic more in general. We need to destigmatize just the concept and the idea of not wanting children. The idea that we grow up, we get married, we have kids is so ingrained in so many cultures, and it has been for such a long time, that when a person announces they're pregnant, people never ask them, why? Why are you pregnant? Why do you want kids? But when I say, oh, I don't want kids, I constantly get asked, why? Why don't you want them? Are you sure you're not making a mistake? And I think until we start treating child-free people and people with children in the same way, and we don't stigmatize one more than the other, and we allow people to make their own choice, and we completely accept it and normalize it, until then, I want to keep talking about it, you know? So in this series of videos, I am going to be answering questions asked by you guys, and I have tried to answer as many as possible. One question that came up a hell of a lot was, have you ever had a phase in which you wanted children? And to that, I have to say, no. Just simply no. I've never actively wanted them at any point in my life. It's never been something that I thought I wanted, you know? It's never been something that's really appealed to me. You know how you get excited, well, I get excited saving up for a new camera, or I always knew I wanted a dog, and I was so excited going through the whole adoption process with Kyra and looking at different dogs and meeting different dogs and filling out application forms, and I would spend hours online looking at dog adoption places. And before I got her, I read so many books about raising a dog and having a dog and looking after a dog and training a dog and the science behind understanding dogs. Never had that with kids at all. There was a period of time where I assumed I'd have them at some point because that was kind of what was normal. That was what everyone thought people did. And I'll get into this a little bit later about how one of my ex-partners didn't pressure me into wanting them, but almost guilted me a little bit into it, and we'll talk about that later. No, at no point in my life have I ever actively wanted a child and felt like that was right for me. I know it's hard for some people to get their head around, but this next question is one that I get asked quite a lot, and I get it asked quite a lot by people who are actually in my life. Like, not necessarily friends because they all understand, but sort of acquaintances and new people I meet. And that is, this person shared their experience and said, I just had that biological clock ticking away at me and this nagging feeling I needed to have a baby. Do you ever have those feelings? And again, the answer is simply no. I've never once felt, oh God, time's running out, oh, I'm against the clock. If anything, sometimes I'm like, you know what, I wish my body would hurry up and get to the point where I don't need to worry about the risk of pregnancy, because pregnancy as a risk is one of the things that scares me so much. And it does make me very careful about things like birth control. And sometimes I just wish it would get to the point where it wasn't a risk anymore. Obviously, no woman really wants to hit menopause because of all the other hormonal changes and things that come with it, and the way it can like affect your aging and stuff. I don't think any woman is wishing for menopause, but I do sometimes kind of wish for infertility. I know that sounds horrible and some people won't understand it, but I just really wish it was the case sometimes. I do have a lot of friends who, especially now a lot of them are in their mid and late 30s, they do feel that biological clock nagging at them. They do feel like they're running out of time. They do feel like if they don't have a kid soon, they're going to be missing out. And they are kind of actively looking for a partner to have kids with, but that's not something I can ever relate to. I still feel like, even though I'm approaching 30 and I only have a few months left until I hit 30, I kind of feel like I'm still very young. I'm still in the prime of my life. I don't feel like any time is slipping away from me. I don't feel like I've got a time limit on what I can do and when. I just feel quite comfortable. It's a very nice, freeing way to live. I feel like this is how men must feel. This person asked a really interesting question of, what impact does childbirth have on the body, and did this influence your decision? Yes, it absolutely did. The idea of being pregnant and going through childbirth terrifies me, and it's something I never ever want to have to go through. I know some people experience pregnancy as this like beautiful, wonderful thing. It makes them feel energized, it makes them feel beautiful. Even childbirth isn't difficult for some people, but I would say for the most part, what I've seen from women who've been pregnant, it just looks horrific. I know my sister-in-law had the worst morning sickness and she was really struggling. There are stories of her like having to emergency like stop her car and pull over so she could puke into a plastic bag in the driver's seat and stuff, and it's just, oh, it sounds horrible. I think apparently my mum had really bad morning sickness as well. My sister-in-law lost bits of her hair and it really thinned out and stuff like that. I've heard other stories of women I know and like mothers of people I know and like the wives of people I know who have lost teeth through pregnancy. They've had brittle bones, they've had so much tearing during childbirth, it's just been painful, it's been uncomfortable. It's damaged their bodies in irreparable ways, and all of that absolutely terrifies me, and I don't want to go through any of that. I feel like I'm really, really lucky because I kind of love my body. I think it's wonderful and it feels very me, and I feel very comfortable in it most of the time, and I don't want it to change. Other than basic aging stuff, but I don't want to go through such a big change to have something else growing inside me and to feel so big, and to feel another living thing inside of you just freaks me out, and that's not an experience I would ever want to have. I know for some people it's really beautiful and really rewarding, but for me it's like the worst horror film experience ever. I couldn't do it. I absolutely could not do it. This next person asked, and again, this is quite a big misconception, do you hate people who want children and think we're stupid and evil? And the answer to that is an absolutely resounding no. Not at all, not even a little bit. I might not necessarily understand your choice, but I completely accept it. And, well, actually no, that's not even the thing. I do understand your choice, I just don't relate to your choice. I guess it's like I understand on an abstract level why people want kids, and I get their reasonings for it. Just like I can understand why people want to go into careers that don't appeal to me, you know? Like, yeah, I understand why people go into banking, but for me, God, I could never do that because it would bore the hell out of me. But I understand that for some people it interests them, or, you know, they like the money that's in that field, or it's something that they're good at and they want to like follow that path, but it just doesn't appeal to me. And I guess kids are the same thing. I understand why it might appeal to other people, but that's not something that's ever appealed to me. And this kind of links into a topic that I want to discuss in another video rather than now in too much detail, but I'm not an anti-natalist, so I don't believe that having kids is morally wrong. I don't shame other people for having kids. I'd never tell other people what to do with their bodies or like whether or not to have kids or not, but I am of the belief that every kid born should be wanted completely, and I think if you bring kids into the world that aren't wanted, it's just kind of selfish and you're not really thinking about who that baby is going to grow up to be and the experiences that they're having. So no, I don't hate people who want or have kids. No, I'm not an anti-natalist. It's just not for me. And that's about it. And the final question I want to answer in this video is, if you have child-free friends who identify as male, do you find they get more respect for their decision? I find that people scoff at women who don't want to be mothers, but sometimes encourage men not to be fathers. Do you get a lot of the standard, what if your husband wants kids commentary too? So I know this is a big question, a lot to discuss. Yeah, I think the experience is very, very different, and I do get people saying that to me a lot, including when I've tried to look into sterilization options. I get asked, do you have a partner? What does he think? Or if I've been single, it's like, do you have a partner? Oh, what if you meet someone in the future who wants kids? I'm like, well, I won't be with them. Simple as that. For me, not having kids in my life is far more important than having a partner or not. And so the discussion of do you want kids or not is one of the first things I always discussed with people when it came to dating, because that's one of the most important core values in my life, and I need to be with someone who aligns with me on that. It's been an issue in the past with, and it's one of the reasons that I broke up with Dan like 3-4 years ago, however long it was now, because we started to kind of be quite incompatible on that. So before I met him, I was pretty sure that I didn't ever want kids, and I brought this up with him quite early on, and then we had like a bit of a drama, I guess, a few months in, where he was like, actually, I think I might want them, and we weren't really sure what to do, and me being an insecure and quite naive young woman. I was only like 22, I think, maybe 23 max. And I was scared of being alone, and I was scared of losing someone that I loved. And I was like, you know what? Okay, we can compromise on this. And I said to him that, how about we compromise and we wait until we get to 30, and then after we hit 30, we just let nature take its course and see what happens. And if we end up having a kid, we have a kid, and if we don't, we don't. And he was like, yeah, I can get behind this is fine. So it was always kind of in his mind assumed that, yeah, we'd have a kid one day. And I was like, great, we might have a kid one day. And it was always a bit of a compromise. And then I started freaking out. The closer it got to 30, the more I was like, I cannot do this. I absolutely cannot do this. And it scared me, and I just had to be quite honest. And I was like, I do not ever want a kid, and I can't do this. And that's one of the reasons I broke up with him, because I didn't think either of us should have to compromise on such an important thing as bringing another person into the world. And so that's just one of the reasons I ended up breaking up with him, because he deserves a chance to go off and have a kid if he wants one, and I deserve to live a life where I don't have to have them for someone else. This question about do you find that men in my life get more respect for their decision than I do? Funnily enough, I know more women who are child-free than men, and I think that is to do with the fact that women are the ones who have to be pregnant and give birth in general. I think that makes women a little bit more aware of what actually goes into parenting and childbirth, and make them more likely to say, actually no, I don't want that. Whereas a lot of men I know are kind of fence sitters, and they're like, oh, maybe I'd like him one day, maybe not, I don't know. Because men don't have to make the decision as early on as women do. Men don't have to go through the whole pregnancy and childbirth thing. And in general, I think men think they can get away with doing less childcare than women, so it's not as big of a deal to them, which is why I think I know more child-free women than men. But I did ask my partner about this, because he is also child-free, which was one of the things where I was like, yes, I like this guy. I asked him about this, and he was like, yeah, it's not really a thing that comes up in my life. Like, he's mentioned it to his family before, but it's not something that they put pressure on him for. He's mentioned it to his friends, but again, it's not something he regularly gets asked about. It's not something that ever comes up. And when he does say he doesn't want kids, people don't really question him on it. Whereas for me as a woman, I constantly get people asking, when are you gonna have kids? You're gonna have kids, right? What if you don't find someone to have kids with? And all this stuff, and it comes up quite a lot. And I do think there is a bit of a double standard there, and it's worrying, you know? I think people assume that for men, kids are a choice, and it's something that may or may not happen. Whereas for women, I think people see us and think, oh, well, surely you're going to be a mother one day, right? I'm speaking about this very generally and stuff, and I'm sure there are different experiences for example, trans women and trans men and non-binary people. I'm sure they have very different experiences as well. I just can't speak to their experiences myself, you know? And I think there's going to be different experiences for different men as well. Like, the only person's experience I can share is my partner's. So yeah, I'm sure the people have experienced different things, but I do think it's interesting, and I do think there is somewhat of a double standard, and I wish there wasn't. I wish it was far more acceptable for everyone and anyone to say, hey, I'm child-free, and not have it be questioned. On the one hand, I think in some ways it's good to ask questions, because it means that people understand our views a bit more and people learn more about it, and there's no stigma around it. But the fact that they have to ask those questions in the first place kind of shows there is still stigma, and it is still not normal and unnatural and that sort of thing. And yeah, the question asking isn't the problem, but the fact they have to ask questions is indicative of a problem. Does that make sense? So on that note, that is where I'm going to end today's video, but thank you for watching. I'll be making far more of these videos because I have tons more questions to go through and answer, and we're going to be talking everything from sterilization, stigma, reasons I don't personally want kids, and my experiences with dating as a child-free woman, and all sorts of other stuff in the upcoming videos. So if you are interested in seeing those, please subscribe for more videos. I'll be making lots more of these. I also make book reviews, science content, history content, social commentary, lots of feminist stuff. I review terrible books, I talk about atheism, I talk about absolutely anything that interests me, and it would be great to have you along for the journey. So if you're new here, please subscribe. If you like this video, leave a like, that would be great. Also leave a comment, because engagement is really important at the minute, and it really, really helps. And if you like this video and want to help reduce the stigma around being a child-free woman and educate more people about what it means to be child-free by choice, then please share around the video on social media, because I would really, really appreciate it. Also, if you like child-free content, then I do have a poetry video called Room Out, which is about my experience of being a child-free woman and standing up for the reproductive rights of all people assigned female at birth. So if you'd like to check that out, it'll be linked in the video description. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon.